here we are forming a gold assaying company, and we had a guy, smart young guy, whose dad had been an entrepreneur, so he'd grown up around kitchen table with those tough conversations, and his name was Dirk Moore Treasure. So he was destined to run that business. So that was the start of it.
Welcome to another episode of the Unicorns Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Kelly. Today's guests are in the business of turning science into scaled up solutions for the real economy. Joining us are Rob Adamson, Executive Chairman of RFC Ambrian, a global advisory and investment firm with a 40-year legacy in the resources sector, and Stefan Skorut, CIO of RFC Ambrian Funds Management, which specialises in critical mineral and critical technology investing. From deep roots in mining and engineering, RFC has grown into a rare beast, part funds manager, part venture builder, part corporate advisor, and one of the few groups actively commercialising CSIRO science into globally scaled businesses. Today, we dive into their journey from ventilation shafts to boardrooms, from research labs to real-world impact. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Rob, let's start with you. You began your post-school life with a degree in agricultural engineering. I'm very keen to find out what exactly that is. So tell us how that has led you to being the chair of a global firm that helps commercialise breakthrough tech driving decarbonisation in the resources sector. That would appear to be quite the leap.
So I grew up in central Western Australia in a large Aboriginal community, and my parents were on a sheep and cattle property, run a sheep and cattle property. So at school, I was good at maths, so engineering was the choice. And the property also happened to be in a large mining district. Mm-hmm. So to fund my university career, I went and worked underground as a miner because I got found that in 12 weeks I could earn enough money to survive for another year in engineering. So that's how it started. And in the course of going through agricultural engineering, I thought, this is a really wishy-washy degree. It was a bit of mechanical, a bit of civil. So I thought, I want to do something that's a bit more serious. So I switched to mechanical engineering. And then unfortunately, when I graduated, it was right in the middle of a recession and there was no jobs for engineers. And at that time, there was a South African government agency that was out at Melbourne Uni, which is where I was at the time. And they said, would you like to do a postgraduate engineering degree? So I thought,
why not?
I don't have a job.
Let's give it a go.
I didn't think that South Africa was in the tail end of apartheid in the middle of a civil war, but off I went to work in Pretoria and started doing postgraduate research and hated it.
Yes.
And I just happened to join a local sports club. I'd done lots of rowing at school and in university. In the sports club, there was a bunch of people from Anglo-American. They said, come and join us. So I went back to mining underground, and it was ultra deep level underground gold mining.
Okay.
And at the time, South Africa, because of apartheid, was suffering sanctions. So they said, while you're working on this underground section, would you like to get involved with local manufacturing? Because we have to circumvent sanctions.
Of course.
So I was working on the mine. I was involved in local manufacturing. I was involved in very active disputes with NUM, National Union of Mine Workers, with a local mine rep. Was a guy called Cyril Ramaphosa, who's now the president of the country. But it was a fantastic learning experience because being ultra deep level, we were installing cutting level technology for that sort of mining. And I was involved in setting up local manufacturing. So to roll forward, and then things got really dodgy, and that they wanted us to sign up for national service because I was a permanent resident of South Africa.
Yes.
So that's probably a good time to go and do a postgraduate degree. So I went and went back to Australia to do an MBA. And when I got back in Australia, because of the mining experience, the engineering experience, there was an opportunity to join an advisory business. So I joined Roger Massey Green at what was Resource Finance Corporation, which was a mining advisory business.
And here you are.
And then roll forward, that experience has sort of led to doing what I'm doing today.
That is quite the story. I'd love it. There's a separate podcast in all of that, Rob. Stefan, let's turn to you. You started your career in mining as a ventilation engineer, if I'm right. So how have you gone from up to 2 Ks underground to Grosvenor Tower in the CBD of Sydney as the CIO as RFC Ambrian Funds Management?
Sure. So it's a story that doesn't go quite as long as Rob's. I started off life as a mining engineer, and as you do your underground time. In this case, it was with a company called Glencore, which most people would be aware of in Australia. And it was at Mount Isa. So very topical at the moment, given where that's at with their smelter and the life of that. But I was involved with a lot of underground crews, and then ended up as a ventilation engineer. So that was quite an interesting, challenging job. It's a very deep mine, a very hot mine. So it has lots of issues with heat and the ability to be able to manage that heat.
And now instead of being underground, you're on level 34 of a skyscraper.
Yeah. So I always sort of knew I wanted to do something more on the commercial side.
Okay.
And a little bit more on the finance side. I wanted to understand how mines got financed, and I wanted to learn that firsthand.
Of course.
So to do that, corporate finance becomes a pretty logical step to understand how the bigger picture works. And found an opportunity to join RFC Ambrian, read into the history, saw it was a firm I'd want to be involved with, and ended up joining just a little under 10 years ago. Fast forward 8 years of many corporate finance roles across mining, but also energy, industrials, and technology as well. And find yourself as a chief investment officer of the funds management arm of the business.
Very good. So, Rob, I want to go through some of the big chapters of the RFC Ambrian journey. Can you shine a light on some of the pivotal moments for us that have shaped the company and where it is today?
Sure. So my significant ownership and sort of generational change occurred in 2001 when the business had always been entrepreneurial, but it was very mining focused. And at that time, the principals were also coal miners and had become fully invested in coal, forming a business called XL Coal, which was taken over by Peabody, so very successful. And so in 2001, myself and the team acquired the advisory business and went off on our way to restart. We also shifted away from just being a mining advisory business to doing industrial stuff and to doing oil and gas.
Makes sense.
And roll forward a few transactions, and within the business we'd always hired really smart, capable people, way smarter and more capable than I am, just because it's a good formula for success and lots of industry insight. So we went and did what we'd done in the old RFC, and with sweat equity and insight got involved in transactions where we formed significant businesses. So an early one was Ballarat Goldfield, and successful exit a couple of years later. Roll forward a few years, and someone that we'd worked in the gold industry walks in and said, "I've seen this great technology at CSIRO that replaces fire assays." So my experience as a deep level gold miner in South Africa was on Monday mornings you'd be sitting with the production manager for the mine and you'd be arguing about gold reconciliation on data that was 2 weeks old. And the general manager would be saying, "Akman, I like you, but Bluxham." It doesn't reconcile.
Yes.
Because So when someone came in with a technology that could speed up the assay process with fast, rapid, accurate data, to me it made a lot of sense.
Yes.
Happy days. So that was the formation of Chrysos, and that was the start of our venture building activities. So to form that business, CSIRO originally just wanted to license the technology out, and we put a proposal to them where they stay a shareholder. We would round up friends and family, typically was friends in the gold industry, and we'd form a business around it. So that was the start of venture building activities. Roll forward, some of those friends and family happened to have fund money in them, and they made money on that early investment in Chrysos as the business grew and was successful. And on the back of that, we thought this makes good sense to form a funds business. So, roll forward to 2 and a bit years ago, that's when we formed RFC Funds Management. On the back of that.
And the rest is history. Stefan, you mentioned earlier that you've been with the business for about 10 years. So what has changed since you started over that period of time, and what excites you about the future?
Yeah, sure. So I think I might start by saying one thing that's been constant through that period, because it'll help unpack the answer. But the thing that's really remained the same during that period is just the companies and the people in it, their entrepreneurialism and their desire to chase down opportunities, finding something that's of value, an asset or something that might be of value to another client, and then chasing that first and then marrying the job to that later has always been constant. So what I've seen over the 10 years is, instead of, say, straight away running to an external client, if the value was very accretive, or it was an ascent business, why not look at it in more of a principal perspective? And Rob's mentioned that was always there, and that's always in the DNA. But when I started, it was happening, but it started to get more systematic, one after the other. And that's really that formation of the venture building arm is the thing that I've seen change the most in the firm as a result, was that systematic process around building these businesses rather than waiting for the right perfect opportunity to come by.
Go ahead.
I'll just add to that. I mean, when we formed Chrysos, which was a gold assaying business, we had this really smart, capable individual, and the people we hire, we look for a Z factor. So the Z factor that I define as, typically it's someone that's grown up around a kitchen table where money's been tight. So here we are forming a gold assaying company, and we had a guy, smart young guy, whose dad had been an entrepreneur, so he'd grown up around kitchen table with those tough conversations, and his name was Dirk Moore Treasure. So he was destined to run that business. So that was the start of it.
Yeah. If we zoom out a bit, the business has evolved clearly from advisory to venture builder to institutional funds management. So a question to both of you, what are the elements that keep these parts connected, or are they intentionally distinct from each other?
No, they're connected, because I think what we've found is, in Australia, because resources are important to the country, there's lots of research done in the resource industry. So there's lots of fantastic science that's done. But typically, miners don't want science projects on their mine site, and research scientists typically don't want to be entrepreneurs. So what we found creates successful ventures is have outstanding science that causes a step change improvement, deep industry insight and knowledge and where you put it and how you deploy it, and then governance, business models and nous that ensures that it makes money. And you put those elements together, which are from different parts of the business, then you've got something that's very strong.
Might add there as well, Rob, the unifying theme is always the industries that we cover. So resources, energy and heavy industries. So that's how...
Basically stuff that dumb engineers can understand.
Yeah.
So RFM is carving out a bit of a niche in scaling up transformative technologies for heavy industry, what has been described as tough tech. So what does tough tech actually mean, and what is the company's history in that sector?
So tough tech is not noughts and ones. So it's not software and it's not apps. So it typically means that you have to build a large piece of kit or equipment that's transformative. So in the Chrysos example, it's a X-ray machine that uses very high intensity X-rays within shielding to zap a sample in a sample jar at a certain energy level to stress gold atoms, so that you then get gamma decay and you can count gold atoms in a sample. So it's big bits of kit.
Something you can actually see.
Something you can see and feel and touch and play with.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very much real asset focused, and the word tough tech, I mean, I like to think it's because it's physical and that's why it's tough, but it's also tough to do. You've got to go out and raise money quite often for these startups to be able to build a first of a kind prototype unit that's a demonstration before you can start generating revenue. So that's not easy to do, but if you do get it right, the beauty about it is you've got something that's harder to replicate. It's got intellectual property and it's got a good moat around that. So because it's hard to do, not everyone does it.
And is that what excites you about the industry of tough tech?
It does. It's that real asset component, and it's finding novel ways to get that done, ways that other people might not think about it, whether that's working with a customer very closely, working with an engineering partner to de-risk some of the stuff that has to get done anyway, but it's not core to the technology, so that you're not trying to reinvent the wheel where you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
And how does Australia stack up against other international players in this industry, in this space? Do we have a natural advantage?
We do, because resources are so important to the industry.
Yes.
There's lots of research goes through universities, and surprisingly, we account for more than half of the tech on mine sites, so including the noughts and ones and the software. But we account for a significant portion of the technology globally. The interesting bit about it, though, is when it comes to the tough tech component, it's typically been done by individuals rather than corporations. So we're quite unique in doing it in a systematic way as a business.
Could you give an example of that?
Example of individuals that have been successful?
Or perhaps shine a light on some of your portfolio companies where they're successful.
Yeah, so Chrysos, for example, as an assay technology business, we've now got Barrick, a number of major gold companies saying that it is the best way to do gold assays globally, and the business is operating in 13 countries. And is growing rapidly. And there's more and more people realising that is a far superior way of doing assays. And then importantly, so far superior, accurate, faster, but then also it's without some of the nasties that come with fire assays. So fire assays, typically you burn off a lead bead, for example. And what the laboratory companies and people don't particularly highlight is that in Australia, laboratory companies won't hire women because of the risk of lead poisoning. And with women and children, they're much more susceptible to lead poisoning. And a horrible statistic is globally, about 20% of children have lead levels that are elevated enough to start impairing your intellectual capacity. So getting lead out of the system is a huge, huge advantage. And people say, well, in Australia we'd have strict environmental. Every year there is one laboratory that will typically breach lead levels and environmental standards. So it's a good thing to do. It's great tech, and it's an Australian success story.
Speaking of which, RFC has a very strong relationship with the CSIRO. I'm keen to know more about that relationship. How did that come about, and what potential is there for more ventures through that collaboration?
So the background to it was we did Chrysos together, and the partnership, initially it was, your venture, this is risky. And then as we worked together longer and longer, people said, actually, this relationship works quite well. So they then said, well, here's another technology where we use magnetic resonance, so think of an MRO unit in a hospital,
Yes.
for detecting minerals and explosives and drugs. But initially it was minerals. We said, oh, that's pretty cool. We could see how you could use that. So we did another one. And it's just, the relationships worked well. It's been mutually beneficial, so we've carried on.
So more to come, potentially, hopefully?
Potentially. There's a sort of constant pipeline of things that we look at. But as I said earlier, we look for things that have big impact, so cause a step change. So we're not just chasing an environmental benefit, we're chasing a way to improve process and to improve economics. And all of the environmental benefits, etc., they're great to have as well, but we want to really improve the economics of operations.
Now, outside of the CSIRO, an example of your homegrown regional success in the portfolio, how do you pronounce this? Is it Gaia Envirotech?
Yep.
I'm keen to know more about this business.
Yep. So Gaia Envirotech is actually founded by two very successful entrepreneurs from the mining industry, funnily enough, and that might explain the answer to your question in terms of how did we source this transaction. As we knew the people from the industry, and this just so happened to be call it a corporate spin out, if you will, that they were working on at the time. It was a corporate spin out effectively from a company called Gecko, which builds gold plants for lots of gold mines across Australia and across the world. And that was founded by two entrepreneurs, Sandy Gray and Elizabeth Gray, who are an excellent dynamic team and have created a lot of value in their core business and sought an opportunity in I suppose what you call the green waste space. So think of your food organics, your garden organics, and any sort of waste that comes off an agricultural farm. So think like the really nice things like manure that comes out of the back of cows in automated dairies and
often
things
for
like
sale
that.
on the side of the road.
Exactly.
$2 a bag.
So it turns out those are actually quite a big problem to take care of, and that's why they're finding ways to try to turn that problem into a revenue stream. So they effectively found this problem, being based in Ballarat, and came up with a technology that could solve the problem, being a modular anaerobic digestion system, which solves the cow manure problem, and also a modular composter, which solves the food organics and garden waste problem.
Incredible.
So they basically turned a waste stream and a problem into something that can be valuable and sold at the back end.
And effectively used the know-how around minerals processing, so smart processing, to build much more efficient and effective processing equipment for waste products.
Does it work?
Yes,
works
it does
incredibly.
work.
Multiple deployments. They've also got as a partner in that business back then for a long time Elphinstone, so a guy called Dale Elphinstone from Tasmania. Also incredibly successful entrepreneur. Initially started a business cutting up bits of cat equipment for underground, and then Cat bought it off him. But they still manufacture and a very big business in Tasmania. So, smarts through the mining industry, but applied to different problem.
So how do you source your, I suppose, deal flow and support ventures like this, and in particular companies that align with the values of RFM but also have strong commercial potential?
Yep. So there's a few ways in which we go about it. One, we could obviously start a company from scratch around outstanding science that we might find. That might be out of the lab, outside of a research organisation, and then put together a business around it. And then you're obviously going to know it's aligned with your values. And those are obviously bespoke proprietary deals that don't really pop up anywhere else. The second tranche is really through that existing network that's been generated over that 40-year time frame of which the company's been around, doing corporate finance across those industries. There's a really good network to tap to see what's interesting, what's out there, and who's working on something that's a bit novel.
And there's a surprisingly large number of scientists that come through the door and say, I've invented this. Is there a business in it?
Yes, there is, but we need to keep you in the background.
Well, yeah, there's we call
sometimes.
It's the kid in the candy store syndrome. So there's a lot of discipline required for scientists to stop them going feral.
There is some scrutiny around green tech ventures, ones that have done very well, ones that have not done so well. So how do you balance the opportunity with the public skepticism of, I'm not sure about this, I can't see this working?
Yeah. So I'd start by saying that frankly, a lot of that skepticism is founded. There's been billions of dollars of government money that's poured into certain things. This is globally, this is not just Australia.
Yes.
Certain technologies on the basis of this market will come, or this will be needed in 10 years' time. And we start by looking at that and saying that's starting with you're finding an answer to a question that no one's asking right now. And yes, we need to decarbonise and do things in a more environmentally sustainable manner. But no one's going to support anything if it doesn't make money and doesn't create societal value. So what I mean by that is more in the strict economic sense. It has to create some sort of economic surplus. So it has to create a surplus in terms of value creation to the customer, and it has to be some sort of surplus to the company to actually create profits so it can continue to reinvest in reinvest in itself, create new products, and continue to stay ahead of the curve. So without that part, you really don't have a company or a technology to back. And I think that's been lost somewhere along the line, that we're just supporting things that the societal values based upon a assumption of where things will be at in the future, but not where it's at today. And then you've got to bridge a 10, 15, 20-year gap for when you think that assumption will actually play out.
Rob, I can see you nodding your head there.
Just reiterate that it's got to make money today.
Yeah.
So no matter what we do, it's got to make money. And there's got to be a need for it today and a place where it can sit. And, that's in that step change. As Stefan said, there's got to be a chunk for the customer, and there's got to be a chunk for you to create a sustainable business, which includes reinvesting. Because what you find, particularly when you're building tough tech, your first one comes out and it's probably a 1960s Corolla. And very quickly, you've got to get to a 2025 Corolla.
Do they still make Corollas? I don't know.
They do. I think they're all hybrid now, probably.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, we're going to go to some fast fire questions. Rob, I'm going to start with you. Reasonably quick answers here, gents. Rob, how would you describe RFC Ambrian in 2 sentences?
Smart, capable people with deep industry knowledge, and working in a business that's got as its foundational pillars respect, empathy, and integrity.
What's your go-to thing when you need to think clearly?
To go and walk around the paddock.
Checklist or instinct? What wins when they disagree?
So we have a commanding general running one of our businesses, and in the military, it's proper planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance. So the more planning and preparation you do, the less likely there is to be piss poor performance.
It's one of my favourite sayings too, so well done there. Lab breakthrough or commercial breakthrough? What excites you more?
90% of technology never gets out the door. So getting it out the door and making it commercial is the bit that counts.
And the best piece of career advice that's stuck with you?
gnaw away at it. So stuff doesn't come simply. Sometimes you just got to try and keep gnawing away at it, and eventually you get there.
Stefan, let's turn to you. How would you describe RFM in 2 sentences?
Sure. So critical technologies and critical minerals investing, and we are active specialist investors.
What trend is everyone obsessing over that you think is overrated?
Sure. I could probably answer this in a number of ways, but look, everyone talks about AI. It's not necessarily the software part. I think it's interesting what's happening in the infrastructure side of AI. I think I recently saw a statistic where the GDP of infrastructure AI exceeded spending in the US, consumer spending, for the first time. So you've got to ask yourself, where's all that money going into something that's not traditionally, doesn't really look like infrastructure, doesn't have those characteristics if you have to replace the chips in it every 5 years. So not sure what's going to happen in that space, but it'll be interesting.
Coffee shop, gym, or washing the motorbike? Where do your best ideas happen?
Probably have to say neither. It's probably just when I have time to think.
What tough tech gold mine is everyone walking past right now?
Probably things that create step changes in efficiency. So we talk about step changes a lot in scientific breakthroughs, but there's a lot of focus on things that might happen in 5 to 10 years' time, as we were talking about. But there's stuff that's happening today where you can get huge benefits that just isn't being implemented like you'd think it would be.
And finally, the best piece of career advice that's stuck with you?
I think it's got to be something along the lines of regret minimization. And that applies to a lot of things. It can apply to your lifestyle, which is probably you want to minimize that, think about the risk overlay there, but also in the investing world, and then also what you do with your career.
Rob and Stefan, it's been great having you on the podcast today. Thank you for coming into the studio and sharing your insights with us, and all the very best with RFC Ambrian. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.